you check the children? You're a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes. That is what
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And you got Jaime and Fuego here.
And we're here to talk about the brand new release for 2022 called Beast. This is featuring Idris Elba in the starring role as a father who has to watch over his children as they unfortunately are attacked by a rogue lion in the South African wilderness. That is the long and short of the story. We will dive into it as we normally do in due time. However, starting off with our overall thoughts, I want to get Fuego's opinion first this time.
Yeah, man. I had my fair share of fun with this. As you actually mentioned when we were talking to the press people as we were stepping out, it was like lean and mean, 90 minutes, entertaining. Performances, especially the chemistry with Idris and his two daughters, I thought was really good. Most notably, the younger of the two sisters, I thought was great. She really stole the show in a lot of ways. The CG, there were times when it looked fantastic, and other times, just depending on the scene, where I was a little less impressed. And I could have gone with a little more gore. I was almost wondering if they were trying to get a PG-13 because it is R-rated. But I mean, very solid tension throughout, and it was a very interactive crowd that was very into it, which definitely helped the situation. So yeah, I had fun, man.
I agree. I had a good time with this one too. I do think that the crowd was way into it. Again, we went to a early screening of it, so the film hasn't come out yet as of when we watched it, but the theater was pretty full from what I could determine. And yeah, there were people that were very into it and talking back to the screen, so to speak. But
especially right behind us,
yeah.
That lady just kept saying, "Nope, no, no."
It was pretty funny. But I gotta say, it was a very entertaining movie. It was a well-made movie. It was a movie where I cared about the characters. It was a movie that, on its surface, is a very shallow film, right? It's kind of simple, puddle deep, but the performances elevate it. Is what I mentioned to the lady after the film. I think that, yeah, as you said, it's a very lean and mean. It's a tight 90, as they say in Hollywood. You know, it's really nice that it doesn't overstay its welcome, but it gives it enough time to, I feel like, get close to the characters and actually care about what happens to them. So I feel like the movie did a good job in doing its job.
Yeah, and also the fact that it's not like a big ensemble or anything. You've really got just four main characters, and then there's
some supporting.
A couple, very small supporting though in that regard. So all four of our main peeps. It was nice to see guy from Hardcore Henry and from District 9. I want to say Shaltro. I'm trying to remember the name of the actor, but he's great. He has this nice chemistry and friendship with Idris, which is good. So yeah, there was nothing wrong with any of the acting. It was all very, very strong performance-wise.
So the story, just getting into it real quick, as we said, it's very simple. Idris Elba and his daughters have traveled to South Africa. He is going there to show them some of the roots of their mother, which they've never seen before, because their mother was raised in South Africa, and then she met him and presumably moved to America, where unfortunately she passed from cancer. And so we find this all out very early. This isn't a spoiler. This is actually mentioned in the trailer as well. So this is the family going, and Idris Elba is trying to show them, the place where their mother came from. Unfortunately, when they do so, it just so happens to be a time where poachers have decimated a pride of lions, except for one, who then basically has it out for revenge on humans the entire remaining film. But as shallow as the story sounds like it is, it's still very entertaining. I mean, Jaws wasn't that deep either, so to speak, but it was very entertaining for what it was. And this, to me, was the same thing. I didn't have the issue with the CG that you seem to. I think the CG of the lion through this was better than the CG of the bear in the recent Predator movie, Prey. The entire way. So I thought the lion was sold very, very well. And I was, it was a lot of the stuff I do when we watch shark movies, but it was a land-based animal. It was, it was very well done, thrilling ride, in my opinion. And the story didn't need to be that deep in order to appreciate it.
Yeah, it didn't have to be. And I mean, credit to the screenwriting at least, because of the fact that even though, simple concept as we had mentioned, there are some very tensely written scenes as far as like the setup, some of the stuff where just the trapped aspect of being in this vehicle, and how the lion is just, trying so desperately to get to our lead characters, Idris and his two daughters and stuff. And so very tensely written, and we'll get into it, with the directing and cinematography and whatnot, but just very effectively shot. But you still have to have that scene on paper, right? So that you can actually film it accordingly and get that, tension, because there's some very tense scenes. It's not as gory as I was expecting, as I mentioned earlier.
There's a good amount, though.
A little bit. It was more.
It's
so
a lot of post gore, yeah.
After attack sort of stuff, as opposed to. I mean, there's a scene in Ghost in the Darkness where a character it's like having its skin pretty much licked off at the beginning. There's nothing quite as hardcore as that, but once again, you have to have this scene constructed, in your screenplay before you can actually film it. And there was a lot of stuff where I was just like, hoo, where it got its effective sort of like just jumps and just making me feel uneasy.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I agree. I will say, just to reiterate, going into the acting briefly, even though we touched on it again, it's a small cast, but the man you said from District 9 and all that, he did a great job. Like, I really cared about his character. But specifically, Idris Elba really raised the bar for the film, especially in a scene where he was talking to his friend about how the death of his wife had affected him and the family and stuff. And, like, I'm just watching it, and I'm like, this is just an Oscar-winning actor bringing his talents to what would have otherwise been a relatively forgettable role in the hands of lesser actors. And like, just the way he acted, talking about losing his wife and all this stuff, the way he was holding his drink, the way he was, again, he can't really be drunk when he's doing this, but he's doing such a good job acting the part. I fell for him and the plight of his family, and it really ingratiated me to all the characters, bringing someone of that caliber into this role.
Yeah, he got the aspect of grieving across, very convincingly. And I mean, for a character that's a doctor, I can only imagine just, to have your wife die of cancer, and if you're a doctor, and just the fact that you're in that medical field, and yet that there was obviously nothing that you could do about it. And then also the different, just the estrangement between him and his elder daughter, and how she's just more of the silent type and resentful. Like, her performance was good, but really, just to double down, Dora, I believe, was the name of the younger daughter, right? And she had just some very amusing snark to her. She's got some very amusing line delivery, especially
Might have been
early
Nora.
on. Yeah, maybe Nora. So I think not the Explorer. I'm trying to look right now, but no, she had some one-liners, man, that were cracking me up. Most notably, the complaining about.
She had a heroic moment that no one anticipated.
Nora,
No one expected the heroic moment.
Yeah,
and when it happened, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, good for you, Nora!" Like,
yeah. People were cheering in the theater for that moment that you're mentioning, man.
Like, that's smart.
Yeah, it was good
And ballsy.
But yeah. Yeah, the poachers are a little one note, but in all honesty, I mean, they don't really have to have. They're not
on screen for that long, really.
Yeah.
They serve their purpose, but again, it's
cannon fodder here and there. But.
It's not that deep of a movie, but it's still super entertaining for what we get, at least in my estimation. Talking about the effects, I think we need to expound on it a little bit further. You said the CG was a little bit worse at times than others. I honestly didn't see such a differentiation in this as I did with the Bear and the Predator movie. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it was way more off kilter in that than the Lion was, to me, pretty consistent in this. And I was happy to see that, because it sold all the way up until one particular sort of moment nearer to the end where it's like, okay, you have to buy into some really big time interaction between.
It's a little check your brain
between like you said afterwards. Like, they do a really good job early on trying to demonstrate an actor interacting with CG lions, and I was like looking closely, I was like, okay, this is pretty seamless. They did a really good job with this. Mm-hmm. But when you get towards the end, it's like, okay, someone's lasting a lot longer than I think they would in actual reality, but it's a movie.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I like that interaction that Charlton had in that particular scene that you were mentioning with the two that he had kind of
Hmm.
raised as his own and stuff. And it was really just a few of the close-ups of our rogue lion, a little bit later in the film. But aside from that, yeah, it did look good, and it was. I can only imagine the amount of work that it takes to actually. Especially in some of those shots where you just see the lion in like the far distance,
Hmm.
like just kind of I don't know, hunting them essentially, and
Just
you know,
bobbing its head above the grass
mhm,
at times. Yeah.
yeah, or like walking, behind this window area of like this
Yeah.
school that they're hiding in, and so I mean, it was not like a consistent sort of looking bad in my estimation. It was really just like a little bit here and there, and some of the close-ups with like, some of the just the snarling and the drool and whatever, but
My
yeah, like 80-90% of the time, dude, I thought it looked really good.
honestly, my only gripe has to do with characters' decisions and the lack of a desire to shut doors behind you. It's like the whole time I'm like, why are we just leaving doors open? Like, like why is this happening? We know what's out there, but still,
Being
there,
forgetful in the heat of the moment, maybe.
there was a lot of tense moments. I feel like they did a great
Hmm.
job with the tension.
Yes.
This is way better than Rogue from last year, right? The
Megan
Megan
Fox.
Fox joint, yeah.
Yeah, that one was. I mean, because the acting sucked in that one, and that's that.
The
you know,
story
that-
was rough too, and the
Yeah,
CG was
yeah.
not good either.
No,
Like
no,
it had a lot
but
going against it, but
yeah. This had much more of a budget, at least as far as like the lion goes, and all of that. So
yeah, I mean, and then the filmmaking itself, as you touched on towards the beginning as well, it's just a very well shot, well presented movie. I never really lost track of what was going on, which can happen sometimes when like there's an animal attack. They'll cut to random angles to make it look like something crazy is going on, but you can't follow it. There's not really any of that in this. You can follow everything very easily. And I had a good time with everything, and it was sold by the way they showed off the effects and how it all worked seamlessly with the actual on-camera stuff.
yeah, and it also helps when you've got just this lush, preservation like reserve sort of spot where they're filming everything, and so you do have some actual animals that were shown in this preserve early in the film. And I mean, a lot of the cinematography from like just the smooth, constant movement of the camera a lot of the time, especially in some indoor situations, it wasn't really a lot of junky handheld. It just felt very polished and accomplished with just the smoothness of a lot of the constant movement in certain bits. So very competently put together from a visual standpoint too.
And the music I thought was good too, because again,
Yeah.
the movie takes place in South Africa, and there's a lot of thematically appropriate music
Yeah.
throughout, in addition to, of course, the intense beat that accompanies all of the crazy chase sequences that we get in the movie.
Yeah, and the sound design of the lion and the snarling and the roaring and stuff. I mean, especially being in a
Yeah.
big theater with a nice sound system and everything, it just upped the effectiveness, like very, very well. The one other visual thing that I just want to say that I don't know how well it worked for me is there were these like dream sequences where it was deliberately kind of out of focus, this like kind of waviness over the situation. Those scenes didn't necessarily work as well for me, but that's really me, grasping it,
I mean,
straws.
that's just obviously, I mean, it's a stylistic choice to demonstrate that it's a dream,
Yeah.
which it is a choice, and it'll mesh with some and clash with others. I didn't have a problem with it myself, but I don't ultimately see a specific story-driven reason for them to have made that artistic choice during the dreams. So
Yeah, and that I can agree with as well. So maybe that's why they didn't work for me as much, was because from a storytelling standpoint, I don't know if they really had as much heft as maybe they were hoping that they would, but
I mean, overall, I think this movie is worth people's time. I do actually think it's worth a trip to the theater if you feel comfortable enough to do so. Maybe
Yeah.
matinee price, but nonetheless, still worth seeing in the big screen because it's thrilling. And with the right audio and the right surroundings and the right audience, it really does enhance it. Again, the people that were, being very vocal about their concerns, it didn't bother me in this. It wasn't all the time, right? It was just sometimes, but it made me giggle a lot of the times that it was happening, because it's at one point, one of the daughters like gets out of the car and walks off, and like I just heard the lady behind us go, "This girl's so hard-headed. I don't know what she gonna get in trouble." Like it was just it just adds an extra layer of enjoyment on a certain level, as long as they're not overdoing it. So I had a really good time with this theatrical experience. I think I would get this Blu-ray and add it to my collection because, again, next to Ghost in the Darkness, I can't think of any other lion-based thriller movies that have done what they've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, and I mean, as much as you and I both love creatures, I've always dug films like Ghost in the Darkness or The Edge when it's just, man
Love
versus
The Edge.
nature. Yeah, and like
Rogue, the alligator movie, or the crocodile
Yeah,
movies,
yeah.
like I love those kinds too.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be some mutated monster for me to find effectiveness because, I mean, these are scenarios that genuinely go down. I mean, Ghost in the Darkness even was based on true events, if I remember correctly. So, yeah.
Well, that's why one of our categories in the Best Monsters series we're going to be doing is real-life ED creatures.
Yeah.
So you can
because
choose lions, you can choose gators, you can choose sharks. Like, we have a lot to choose from here.
Yeah, and
Bears.
this is one that I'm gonna have to recommend to my pops because he's always wanted to go to Africa like his whole life. And
Good one to show him.
Yeah, he's an outdoorsman, and he's into this sort of stuff. So yeah, I could actually see myself going back to the theater just to check it out with him because I think he would really dig it too.
Nice, right on. Well, I think that's going to do it for all of our non-spoilery thoughts on this. I don't think a spoiler section is necessary. I mean, you guys should go and experience it for yourselves. I do think it's very much worth your time. It is worth your money, but if you'd rather wait until it's on VOD, it's going to be worth your time then as well. So whatever you choose to do, but we do, or at least I recommend seeing it in a big screen because I had a really good time with a big crowd seeing it that way. So I definitely think this is worth your time and money if you're willing to do it.
Yeah, with it being a little more straightforward and I'm not going to say predictable, but a lot of stuff kind of plays out.
I would say I almost said that myself. So
yeah, but I mean that's once again the communal aspect of seeing this, in a big area with an audience, I think will enhance the enjoyment. So
indeed. So thank you guys very much for watching. If you've made it this far especially, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel directly the way that you have been. We greatly appreciate you guys. You do help us keep the lights on and continue to make this content. So thank you very much. If any of you that are not patrons want to join, you can do so at the link in the description box down below. As little as $1 a month will grant you access to almost 150 reviews that are not available on the main channel and only available through the Patreon. So thank you guys very much for watching. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias, I've been Jaime Fuego.
Make sure you go see Beast, which should have been called Prey, and Prey should have been called Beast. I still maintain that. So until next time, remember, guys, stay scared.